Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining us here on Jake's Takes, where we kind of get specific about certain things that are happening around the SEC, try and stay as current as possible. The news broke, and there's been some news the past couple days. Auburn's lost 2 defensive linemen to the transfer portal. You look at Jay Hardy and Jaron Handy. I'm going to talk about why this stuff happens, not only at Auburn, but it happens across the board, why it's important, the good, the bad, and where they go from here, because I know half everybody's panicking. The other half are trying to stay calm and figure out what it means. I'm going to try and put it in layman's term. To quote the great Kent Murphy, I'm going to break this down from a fundamental standpoint. So, first off, why does this happen? Number one, this has not just happened at Auburn. This happens everywhere where a new coach gets hired. Okay, to be honest with you, you've actually had it happen a lot less at Auburn than at some other places. I mean, you look at Mississippi State, for example, when Mike Leach took over, and you hear different cliches for it. Trimming the fat, doing some housekeeping, whatever. Because here's the situation. Every circumstance is different. Some guys leave because it's not a good fit with the coaching staff, and they may not believe in the philosophy, or it may not be a good fit for them. Guys leave because they're forced to leave in certain situations, whether it's off the field, on-field performance, not showing up, whatever. Whatever the circumstance is, when a decision like this is made, whether it's mutual or it's not mutual, the job of the head coach is looking to the betterment of the team in the long run. And you say, oh, well, these guys are really talented. You're depending on these guys. They can be talented. They can be very talented. There's talented, super talented guys that have left places, but the place was better because they left it. And listen, I'm not saying that Handy's a bad kid or Hardy's a bad kid or whatever. What I'm saying is it's a lot more detrimental to your team to keep a talented guy that doesn't believe in what you're doing, because all it takes is a whisper to start leaking around the team from somebody that's talented, and then the first time something doesn't go right, it turns into a roar. And it creates all type of dysfunction. It can totally corrupt the young guys, especially the new class, into thinking that it's something that it's not. We call it attrition. Some people sometimes call it addition by subtraction. And I'm going to get to where it hurts you on the defensive line, because the biggest saving grace in this whole deal, and some people hate the transfer portal, but if you're a new coach and you're having to trim the fat, the transfer portal can be the perfect remedy to what just happened. And Auburn's going to have to go into the transfer portal, because looking at the depth chart, there's some talented guys there, but there is no depth. And there's another guy in that edge position, T.D. Moultrie. A couple guys that have been absent from A-Day have just left the team. Hardy, Handy, Alec Jackson wasn't there. He's still a part of the team. You look at T.D. Moultrie, an older guy that was held out. So I think Auburn's going to have to go to the portal. But you'd rather cut bait with a guy that you think down the road is going to cause cracks in your foundation, in your culture, into what you want your team and the mindset of your team to be 2, 3, 4 years down the road. It's better to cut bait with that guy now than take the risk of some, because again, Auburn's not going to win every game this year. They don't have unbelievable personnel and depth everywhere. They're not built like Alabama and Georgia is right now. And that's not Brian Harsin's fault. So there is a need to fill the void that is left. But it is still not worth keeping guys that may end up, and listen, I'll say it again. Don't think they're bad guys. But if they're going to be a problem to the team, you got to let them go. And that's what smart head coaches do. That's what head coaches that are trying to forecast where they want to be. That's what they do. You look at Bruce Pearl in Auburn. When he got there, there was attrition. The roster wasn't great for the first couple years. But he built that foundation and culture to when they started to win, and these 5 stars come in. The 5 stars are coming in and having to acclimate to the culture that's already there, as opposed to having to keep trying to build it every year. That's the risk you run. And to be honest with you, it hasn't hit Auburn, as I mentioned earlier, nearly as hard as it has hit some other teams that have new head coaches, especially with the portal being the way it is. Because if you look at the depth chart right now, you look at the DN spot and the edge spot, whatever you want to call it. Edge being the stand-up guy, defensive end being the hand-down guy. We know how great Colby Wooden is at DN. He's a stud. He's a star. Zykevious Walker and Caleb Johnson should give some depth behind him. They should. And remember, there's some incoming guys, too, I'm going to mention at the end. Don't forget about the incoming guys in the summer, including Andrew Leota from Northwestern, who I think is really going to help on the defensive line. So that's the defensive end spot. You got Daniel Foster-Allen down there as well. I don't think he's going to get a ton of PT, excuse me. You look at the defensive tackle positions, there's 2 of them. All right, so separate them at D tackle. You got Marquise Burks. Got a lot of people are excited about it. 1, Lee Hunter and Dre Butler backing him up. That's the way it's right now. Now, listen, these can change. I'm just giving you the bodies. Lee Hunter's going to be a star. Dre Butler's figuring it out. I like Burks. You feel pretty good there with that 3-man rotation. You look at the other defensive tackle spot. Okay, Tyrone Truesdale comes back, a guy with experience that has to play better. And then J.J. Pegues right behind him, a guy we know has a high ceiling. We know has the talent to do it. He needs reps. It doesn't happen overnight. You need another body there. All right, you need another body there. Now, you could say, all right, Dre Butler, you can play one D tackle position, you can play the other. That's true in 90% of cases. You can kind of cross-train that without really having to go nuts and teach them a whole different position. Obviously, you're in different places. A lot of it is alignment, but you rely on the linebackers, especially the experienced guys, to help them out with that as well. You look at the edge spot, the stand-up rush spot. Derek Hall, really excited about him. TD Moultrie, veteran guy, was held out of the spring. Like I mentioned, 2 guys that were held out of the spring have just decided they're going to transfer. He's up in the air. You can't count on that guy right now unless you're inside the program and know that he's going to be there. Romello Height is a guy that looked pretty decent during the spring. Is he ready to burst on the scene? You never know till the lights come on. I still think he's a year away. He provides you with some depth there. So those are some names. Nick Curtis is there as well. But those are some names, all right, that Auburn has floating around the defensive line. You see there's some talent there, but there's not a ton of depth. Now listen who they have coming in. All right, Andrew Leota, experienced guy from Northwestern, a guy that I think can play multiple spots. That's going to provide you with some depth. I would not be surprised to see him move up that depth chart very, very quickly. Experience is king. I'm interested to see where he ends up on the defensive line. I think it's going to be a domino effect because the goal is to get your best players on the field. That's the goal. Just like the offensive line, you want your best 5 offensive linemen on the field. You can't just sit here and say, okay, well, this guy's this guy's this guy's this guy's this. You may have 3 unbelievable tackles. You can only play 2 tackles at once. So you take that 3rd tackle and you put him at guard if he can do it. That's how you get your 5 best out there. It's the same thing with the defensive line. So you got Andrew Leota. All right, Tebeki Okoli, freshman coming in. He's going to take at least a year. His tape's really raw. I don't think you can count on him making a huge contribution. Ian Matthews, a guy that should get a chance to show what he can do early. Again, you're coming in later than these other guys. Can you provide a body that they can count on if somebody goes down? Because somebody will get hurt throughout the course of the year. Just the nature of the beast when you play in the trenches or really anywhere at this level. So you have got to keep creating depth. Ian Matthews, a guy that has a chance. Marquise Robinson, I think he is going to be a surprise out of all these guys. 3-star, a guy they were super high on when he signed, or when he committed. They kept him. He ended up signing. Don't be surprised if Marquise Robinson kind of comes out of nowhere and makes a move at that interior defensive line spot. And then Dylan Brooks. We all know the Dylan Brooks saga. Signed with Tennessee. They fire their head coach. NCAA allegations looming. He decides he wants to come to Auburn. Can Nick Eason get him ready from a move standpoint? Physically, it's just going to take some time, but he's not small. He's got some meat on those bones, but he's got to develop some technique, and it's really tough to rely on young guys to come in and play that spot. Can he provide some depth? He has the ability to. I don't think he's ever going to be an elite pass rusher, but I think he's going to be a guy that's 255, 260, maybe even more. Is really good against the run, provides enough against the pass to help you, and they need depth. So you do have bodies coming in, but you need to go get somebody from the portal. If you look at these 3 spots and still feel good about Donovan Kaufman, the Vandy transfer at safety, they could get him and bump Tennyson down to nickel. You're feeling really good on defense, but you need to try and go add an experienced body from the portal. I expect Auburn to do that unless they know something that I do not, which is always possible when you're not in the building. But I think they need to go get a guy, because if you look at offensive line, you look at defensive line, now that you've had 2 guys leave, and yes, that does open up 2 scholarships. So you have the numbers. I've gotten a lot of questions on social media. Does this open up numbers? Yes, it does. That gives you 2 more spots, which makes the portal very interesting. Because again, those 2 more spots doesn't necessarily mean you got to go get 2 defensive linemen. That could add a number to another spot. That can maybe give you a chance to get another receiver. So we'll see how Auburn plays it. Does it hurt to lose Jay Hardy and Jaron Handy? Yes, they're talented. But in situations, it's always better to get guys out that don't fit what you are trying to build, because this thing is going to take some time. It is. And I know there's Auburn fans and expect to win every game, and I understand that. It's a high standard. But this roster has to be developed. The structure has to be put in place, and that's Bryan Harsin's biggest task, is getting the roster where it needs to be. So do not be surprised to see them go to the portal. I think they'll do it. That's kind of the situation. If anything changes, obviously we'll let you know. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Got some unbelievable content coming out this week. We're releasing our top 10 ranked QBs in the SEC with Tom Luganville. I think a couple are going to surprise you, especially who he has at number 1 and his thoughts on Bo Nix, and also our post-spring SEC predictions. I think you guys are going to find that interesting as well. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Head over to thejboyshow.com to get some merchandise. We're always adding stuff. It's another edition of Jake's Takes. Come and check us out. Got some great stuff on the way. Holler at y'all later.